on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Don't wait until your nasal engine check light comes on, right? You've got to do something ahead of time, because if you're waiting there, it will help. There's studies out there that show it stops transmission, and the xylitol has a benefit that it doesn't allow adherence of the viruses, bacteria specifically, and allergens from sticking to the nasal tissue. But if you can do it daily, you're that much further ahead and you're pushing it out. The xylitol is really the benefit. The xylitol is anti-adherent to the bacteria, pathogens, all those in the nose, which helps. And then also it opens the airway. We have a study that shows that within minutes, your airway is open, so you get greater. So it's a natural anti-inflammatory, and it's hyperosmotic. It draws the moisture out of the tissue as opposed to just saline or others.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome in everyone into this bonus episode this weekend. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston. This is a really good episode and great timing as we're getting into a more serious cold and flu season. We are joined today by Joel Melton. Joel is the Director of Marketing over at Xlear. And for those listening who might be maybe newer to the industry or younger in your profession, Xlear is a company behind the xylitol-based brands of Spry and the Xlear nasal spray line. They are vital to our industry. But even more than that, their products protect people of all walks of life. And so as we get into this episode, we're talking a little bit with Joel about the protective nature of nasal rinsing. I want you to think about your patients, the parents who have kids bringing germs back to their homes, the teachers who are constantly combating those same exact germs. I want you to think about the vulnerable populations, the elderly and those with compromised immune systems. Think about the athlete who is training for a marathon or the truck driver working long hours on the road. There's literally not a single patient type that I can think of that wouldn't benefit from you sharing what you learn here on this episode. So please make sure you do that. Special thanks to our partners on this episode in Xlear, and thank you to Joel for his time with Erica and I at RDH Under One Roof. And with that, here is the episode.
A tale of two hygienists.
All right, listeners, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. Joined today by Joel. Joel, thank you for making time for us today.
You're welcome. It's a great pleasure to be here. Glad I could make it.
So we have a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, but we always start off the podcast with just kind of getting to know a little bit our guest for the episode. Do you mind giving our audience a little bit of your background?
Oh, of course. Yeah, so I'm the Director of Marketing at Xlear Incorporated. You're all familiar with our brands. We have our Xlear and Spry brands, which are great to oral and nasal health. I come from a medical device background. So spent many years in marketing and medical device and saw this opportunity and was very interested, kind of in the biotech with the xylitol. And so that's what made me come over, and this opportunity was close to home. I live in Utah where our headquarters are. And so it just made a lot of sense. And it was a great opportunity because Xlear was in a nice transition as we look and continue to grow. And so, yeah, my background's in marketing and medical device and life sciences, and just made a lot of sense to come over, and I've enjoyed it. I've been here for 2.5 years, learned a lot, spent a little time in dental before, but learned a lot more since I've been here, and excited to continue with Xlear.
Well, we appreciate making time. Listeners, we've had Xlear on the podcast many, many times. We've had Rhoda on the podcast. We've had Nate on the podcast. Really great people working for. What's been your experience working with the people?
It's amazing. The company itself has very little turnover, which surprises me because in this day and age, there's so much turnover, job hopping. Our team of educators that Rhoda is on, they've all been here 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
Nate, founder of the company, has been around 25 years. Next year is our 25th anniversary. We have a lot of people that have been there 19 years. They started in production. Our VP of operations is was started in production as a part-time guy. And same with our other departments. There's a lot of longevity. They like the company. It's still kind of run as a small owned company because Nate's the founder and CEO of it. But the culture is great in terms of we're just looking to help people. I mean, simply put, they're just looking to bring the benefits of our products to people, and however we can through education and making those products available. And I think that really matches a lot of the personalities that are at the company. So that's the great part.
I like how you said, it's still run as a small, like family-owned small company, but it's really not. When you look at it, like you can find the products just about anywhere.
Right.
And so it feels like to me sometimes like, oh, you guys are actually a bigger company, but it's so intimate. And we come to Under One Roof with listeners. If you're hearing some background noise, we are recording this, several months ago, I guess, by the time this releases. But on the show floor at Under One Roof. But we've seen Rhoda. We've all had the samples. We've had Spry. We've had all these, the mints and the gums and the things like that. I wanted to ask, before we get into kind of the topic of nasal washing and then the importance thereof, about dental hygiene, dental hygienists, and what that has meant to the company, though, because it seems like you have gone out of your way to make that a focus as like a partner.
Yeah, that's a good recognition. Absolutely. Dental hygienists, in my mind, before I started working here, they take so much time with the patient. I mean, whether it's their personality or part of their just innate in their profession, they've got to sit there with the patient's mouth's open, and they're listening to it. So that patient education time is really a lot. And the patients, as we all are as patients, are vulnerable. They're sitting there wanting to listen and understand what this professional is telling them, what they can do. And so that, long before I was here, was seen as a great channel for us to make sure we're getting the message out of the oral hygiene the products that we provide. And it's a great opportunity for us to educate further because the Xylitol products, Xylitol itself is taught just a very small amount and for hygienists, dental assistants, the whole area. And so we find a lot of opportunity to educate that further, and in that education, teach how to implement this into their practice with patients. And that's really one of the keys, because patients will take the recommendations and go find it because they trust and value the hygienist's words and opinion as they're cleaning their teeth and doing that cleaning. So yeah, it's a big channel for us, the hygienist channel.
Do you know if the spray came first before the mints and the gums, or did this all come at the same time?
Spray came first. So this Nate probably has told you the story before, and I'll be very brief. His dad was the doctor down in Texas that invented the spray because of his pediatric patients and their ear infections. Based off of the original studies that showed xylitol and gum was a little footnote in that study that talked about the reduction in tooth decay. A little footnote says, oh, and by the way, it mitigates inner ear infections, right? And so that put a light bulb in Nate's and Dr. Jones's head, and he started making his own nasal spray. Well, Nate happened to be in town visiting him, and when he was visiting him, a patient came in that drove several hours with grandkids in their car. They came and asked for this, and Nate was sitting there. Now, a light bulb goes off in his head. If there's a grandmother with 8 grandkids willing to drive in and buy this, Nate refers to it as jungle juice because he was, I say garage brew, whatever, but it was a doctor doing it, so he had the right components. And so he made this, and he was selling out of his practice to him. And Nate said, we ought to put this together as a company. And there was other intricacies to the details to the story, but that turned into Xlear, and Xlear became Xlear Inc., the company, and Xlear our brand. Then within a year's time, met up with some other professionals and kind of leaders in xylitol, and they said xylitol really needs to be in the oral care as well. The gum and mints came on, and then of course the toothpaste, the mouthwash, everything else that comes with the Spry brand comes there, but the nasal spray was first.
Let's go down the aisle of nasal spray. I think this is something, even though we've talked about this on the podcast, I still see it amongst my friends where it's like, I'm going to use this spray when I'm sick. And we were talking off air beforehand, and that we really need to have like a dedicated routine to washing our nasal passage. Do you mind talking a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. I refer to it often, when I talk to people, even if they're not in this industry, but just people in general, don't wait until your nasal engine check light comes on, right? You've got to do something ahead of time, because if you're waiting there, it will help. There's studies out there that show it stops transmission, and the xylitol has a benefit that it doesn't allow adherence of the viruses, bacteria specifically, and allergens from sticking to the nasal tissue. But if you can do it daily, you're that much further ahead and you're pushing it out. Nate tells the story of his kids that one of his kids has never been sick because she's been grown up with this. I never used a nasal spray before I worked at Xlear. I would pass the building on my way down south because it's about 40 minutes from my house. And I always wonder what it was because I saw this odd word with an X that just isn't usual.
Like, how do you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Xlear.
And we get it all the time.
Xlear.
We get it all the time. I always thought, well, maybe it's a hearing aid company, extra large ear, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And it was sitting off to the side. When I started working there, I knew I couldn't come out and tell people this nasal spray really works unless I tried it. And in my mind, I had this picture. I grew up in Southern California, and every once in a while, you'd be body surfing or boogie boarding or whatever. You get slammed by a wave, and you'd get a sinus enema, right?
Like,
it would
exactly.
just be blowing it out. And you'd have to stop. Everything would be spinning around. Well, I would picture that as this nasal spray. I've never used it in my whole life. So I finally went home and I kind of started using it. And it was the most amazing thing. And I don't say this because I worked there. I was only there for 2 weeks. I tried it and it was light. And the xylitol has an initial cooling effect. And all of a sudden, because of the benefits of it, I could breathe better. And I thought, this is amazing. So from that point on, every morning when I brush my teeth, it's right there by my toothbrush. I nasal spray every single morning, pumps on both sides. And then also the benefit is right before I go to bed. It's, it metabolizes in about 4 hours, so it won't last through the whole sleep cycle, but it certainly gets me started. So I'm a big proponent of doing it daily and not waiting till that nasal check engine light comes on.
So can you talk to us about when our patients ask us, so why should I use this rather than something, without naming any names, that has more of a medication in it that's not for long-term use, when they're dealing with allergies or they just want to clear their nasal passages? Why Xlear, and why can you use it every day safely?
It's funny because you can't ask that question without a play on words, right?
Yeah.
Xlear itself is literally, that's what the name was from, because it's clearing the nasal passage. And I think that's one of the benefits. We consider it all natural. It just has 3 ingredients. So it has the xylitol, the saline, and the grapefruit seed extract. And it's very simple and easy to use every single day. And I think one of the things, so we don't discourage if a doctor has prescribed one of those over-the-counters to use that. It's well known. You can talk to anyone that uses those over-the-counter brands, and there's either rebound effect or addiction because of something. And we have people that use Xlear as a supplement to those. We have people that use Xlear completely in place of it. It's up to them. We can't recommend or tell them to do anything. But using it as a supplement because it has those innate properties, the xylitol is really the benefit. The xylitol is anti-adherent to the bacteria, pathogens, all those in the nose, which helps. And then also it opens the airway. We have a study that shows that within minutes, your airway is open, so you get greater. So it's a natural anti-inflammatory, and it's hyperosmotic. It draws the moisture out of the tissue as opposed to just saline or others. And the fourth benefit, it tastes good.
Yeah,
it's
it
interesting because every time someone uses it in front of me at a trade show booth, they get it back. You want it to get back all the way through, and they say, this is sweet. Their eyes open up, and I'm thinking, that's the least of the benefits, but I'm glad you like that because it's not salty with the saline,
right,
or they don't taste the medicine.
And doesn't taste like perfume or flowers.
Right.
Yeah.
That was actually a surprise to me the first time I did it, because you elevate your head just a little bit and it just like goes back, and you taste it on the whole back part of your whole tongue. It's like it's a
and that's when you know
delightful.
You've done it right.
Oh, good.
If you get it all the way to the back, you know you've sprayed it and you've inhaled it back. That's the key. If it can get into the back of your throat, and it's obviously not a big because it's just a little plume of spray that comes out, but you know you've done it right if it reaches back there because it's coated the entire nasal passage.
Can we talk about the varieties, the different ones, and when to use which product?
Sure. So our Xlear standard formulation is, we call it our daily nasal spray. The daily nasal spray should be used every day and at least twice a day. And if you feel like it in the middle of the day, you can use it again. It doesn't harm or do anything
Great.
if you use it a third time. That one is kind of on a regular basis. That's the one I use every morning when I brush my teeth. There are 2 other versions that are similar in the base formula. One is we call our Max, and that has the capsaicin seed, so the pepper seed. A lot of people see that on the box. There's a little graphic of it, and they just think right away it's going to burn. Well, it's formulated, and you can imagine, if you're cutting onions or doing anything with kind of a strong smell, it kind of breaks things up and gets things moving in the nose, which is the purpose of it. But it helps, I think, a lot with, allergies or really, packed sinus. And so it really helps to break that up, but you're also getting the benefit of xylitol. That's the same as our daily. That one we don't recommend using for extended periods. If someone does it, it's up to them. But we recommend that one just for limited periods when you have maybe allergies coming on. And so that one's a great one too. I use that one. And so it's a little more aggressive than our daily.
It's not overly so though. I would use, I have one nasal passage that will end up getting kind of clogged up more than the other one. And so I'll do it in a single passage with that one.
Perfect.
And it does, there's a little like tingling in the back of the throat. Kind of same where you feel like that sweetness is where I feel a little bit of that capsaicin.
I'd used it and I never walk away thinking that was so painful, I can't do it again. I look forward to it as a remedy if I ever get into that stage. So we have our daily and our Max, and then we also have our Rescue. Rescue has some natural oils in it, and it has some essential oils. It has oregano, tea tree oil, eucalyptus. There's a lot of those that are commonly used, kind of in the natural holistic world as remedies for other things. But I know that one was kind of developed based on Nate's experience when he had a sinus infection. And they wanted something to kind of help break up, and those things bring that variety to it without having to step out of the natural world. So it still has the base formula with the saline and the xylitol, and then add those extra. That one, I personally find a little more aggressive to me, but it settles down right away, but it certainly works really well. So I've used them all. We have a 4th version that we do actually offer, and it has oxymetazoline in it, but I find it, so it's our 12-hour decongestant, and I find that one to be very effective if you need it. I've only used it once in my whole 2.5 years. There's a lot of people that use it, especially, as they have other troubles going to sleep, trying to open up, because it works really well. And I think there's a balance. I'm not just trying to make it sound good, but I think there's a balance with having the xylitol with those other products that makes it, and I think it limits some of that, rebound or others. And that one, again, is very limited use. It's not something you would necessarily, unless a doctor prescribed it, use it more often. So the daily one, by far, use it daily, and you're going to find those benefits throughout your total week and month and year, because you're using that more as a daily use.
I haven't used the Rescue and the 12-hour decongestant. I haven't used those ones yet. So I'm writing those ones down so I can just give them a whirl just to see what it's like.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting to experience all of them. I think that's worth having on your countertop or in your medicine cabinet, wherever you have it. I want to pivot, if we can, to studies. I think one of the things that Xlear is really well known for is just like having, backing and like just analyzing things. Can you talk about some of the studies that you guys have looked at to help support what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So Nate, he's very, very academic by nature. He loves research. He loves studies. We have a great clinical advisor team for number one being his dad, who invented it. I think he's talked before. We have several dentists. We have a pulmonologist. We have a hygienist. And so he's really into that, which I think is great.
Yeah.
We take a lot of those studies and we put them right on our website. So you'll see a section of our website that's fully academic and just has that listed there. And so there's a lot of studies that are showing, number one, nasal washing is beneficial. And nasal washing is not something new. The term seems new to us, but it's happened for centuries in other cultures. So nasal washing has been around for a long time. And what we refer to as nasal washing is, of course, the spray. And the studies show that. There have been a lot of studies done post-COVID pandemic. And that's kind of one of the things that we were careful of. We were taking information that was already available, talking about nasal washing, and we know that saline does a very effective job just by itself.
Sure.
And when my kids, I have 5 kids, when they were all young, I wish I had known about Xlear because my oldest daughter was born a year before Xlear, the nasal spray, was invented. I didn't know anything about it. So I remember just using saline on them when they would get clogged up or whatever. And so that's really the key there is saline we know works really well because it does, but it doesn't have that lasting effect. And so xylitol added into that mixture really does that. And there's a plethora of studies out about xylitol in general, both oral and nasal, and it just shows the benefits of xylitol and what it does in the nasal microbiome. And that's really where we're going to see a lot more benefits, and that's the exciting growth that we see. And hopefully that continues to impact the consumer so that they kind of move and transition from wait and see for that nasal check engine light to let's use this daily on a maintenance type schedule.
I love it. And I will make sure that we link to that in the show notes,
Sure.
the website and all of that. I want to talk about, in the last couple minutes that we have, is there a preference where we direct our patients to or the hygienist to get the product? So for example, would you rather have them direct from the website? Is it an Amazon thing? Is it their, CVS, Walgreens?
That's a great question. I came on, so I have some history in dental and medical, and I know that patient compliance is typically not very good, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're getting the advice, they like the advice. But specifically, if you think about in the dental world, if you're talking to a teenager, they're likely leaving and going to a friend's house, or they're leaving and going to soccer practice, or they're leaving and going to something. If you're talking to the parents, they're either going back to work or they're going and taking their kids to soccer practice. So you could leave them, in the operatory on the chair and say, hey, this stuff's really good. So what I've determined and what we're trying to work on is how do we shorten that path from that recommendation from professionals such as yourselves and then get that patient compliance up so they actually do that.
Right.
Because with anything else, they may come back in the next visit and say, oh, I forgot to get it. So with that, we've tried to make it available everywhere. So our nasal spray is pretty widely available everywhere, meaning, we're a number one seller in a lot of the main pharmacies, right? So CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, Target, all those that you see.
Right.
We do have a presence on Amazon. Xlear doesn't operate that store. We have a customer that operates that store, but he lives right close to our headquarters. He gets everything we get. Sometimes he gets things that we don't even put out into the market, but he operates that. So Amazon is a great place if you're an Amazon user. Last year, we just started opening our e-commerce store again. Now you can get it on our website as well and get it directly from us. We run promos all the time, depending on different things with some sponsorships we have. So what we want is it to be available for everyone. Ideally, if they're going into the stores, that's great. It's convenient. It's close to them, and they can pick it up right away so they don't run out of it. But they can also do a subscription on Amazon or, we'll eventually have subscriptions on our site. There's a couple other websites it's available on. So we just ask that it's kind of like they call us, when people call up and say you're Xlear or you're Xlear or whatever you are, we say, we don't care. Just keep on calling us. It's the same thing with this. Wherever you go, just keep on buying it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joel, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you making yourself available for this. I love the resources that you have for hygienists to be better educators with their patients, to be more collaborative. If the listeners wanted to find out more, though, about Xlear or about Spry or about any of the things that y'all are doing, where's the best place for them to go?
So Xlear.com is our main website, and also sprysmile.com. We have Facebook pages for both those brands, and we also have Instagram. We're on social media now, pretty wide. So any of those will do great if they want to get there.
Yeah, and I want to put in a plug for the Facebook groups, because I tell you what, there are a lot of great questions that clinicians are asking fellow clinicians, and they're great answers. They're things that are going to help us directly with our patient care. So
yeah, that's Xlear Chat.
That's Xlear Chat.
Yeah, the Xlear Chat is a great one that the hygienists operate.
Yeah, I love that one. So again, Joel, thanks for being here.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.